I've never really done this. I've never done, um, I guess it's called a vlog. uh, but my heart has been deeply burdened with the issues that are going on right now in a specific conversation that my husband and I had last night. And it's been so deeply burning on my heart that I just couldn't let it go. So last night, my husband and I went out to dinner, and we were talking about all the disgusting and tragic events that are happening with the protest over the statues and the KKK and white supremacists that have come out in droves. I still don't quite get what they're protesting because it's beyond the statues, but it's disgusting. Their behavior is disgusting. And we were talking about how embarrassing it is as white people that this is still happening. It's not that we're oblivious to it, like we know it still happens, but it's just embarrassing and it's disgusting. And my husband made a comment I'm sure that probably you've made as well. I know I have, that he knows it's wrong and he knows that it shouldn't be like this, but what could he do? Because he doesn't live there and it's really far away, and what could he possibly do? And the words that came out of my mouth next must have been from God and the Holy Spirit, because I felt like I was being taught in that moment as much as he was. I said, yeah, but don't we have a responsibility to the people in our own community? I live in Southeast Texas, and racism is still quite rampant in this area. And if you live in this area and you don't think so, you're not really paying attention. And I'm not just talking about like the Viter rumors and the KKK. It goes much further beyond that. It's everywhere. And I said, we know that racism still exists in our area. If I was a black person living in Southeast Texas, knowing that racism is still rampant in my area, and seeing the news of all this happening elsewhere, wouldn't I be worried about it coming to my area and being even worse, and the protests and stuff coming to my area? Do we not have a responsibility in our own hometown to stand up and say something? And he agreed, and as the words came out of my mouth, my heart just became so convicted and so burdened that that's why I'm doing this. I couldn't let it go, even through the night. So I'm here talking to you with messy hair, no makeup, and pajamas, because it literally couldn't wait for me to look decent for you. I commented to him also that someone had posted something on Facebook. It was a screenshot of a Twitter account where someone said, if you've ever wondered what you as a white person would do during the Holocaust, during slavery, during the Civil War, during the Equal Rights Movement, it's whatever you're doing right now. And I know what's happening now is wrong, but what am I doing? Nothing. And the fact of the matter is that making some kind of comment on Facebook or sharing things like that, which I did share that Twitter comment, but that seems so empty. It seems so, I'm just gonna put in my 2 cents from a distance and not really say anything or do anything. So that's why I'm here. I feel like I have a responsibility to the people in my own community, and that's what I'm going to do. So this is a open letter, open vlog, whatever you will, open plea to the Black people in Southeast Texas. I do say Black instead of African American because I do know that there are several Blacks here that don't have African roots. They're actually from the Caribbean and other places. So just an FYI for that. I think the best thing that I can do at this point is to start out and confess my ignorance to you. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't understand cultural appropriation. There's times where it's blatant and I understand it, and there's other times where I feel like it's happening to other cultures and you don't seem to be up in arms about it, and I don't get it. I don't understand when it's appropriate to call someone Black and when it's appropriate to call them African American or Caribbean American or anything else. And I'm not saying all this to complain. I'm trying to honestly confess my ignorance. I don't know what I'm doing. I live in a community that doesn't claim to be racist, but has a lot less cultural diversity than other towns around here who have a reputation for being racist. So obviously that's not all as it seems. I do have several relationships and friendships with Blacks outside of this area, from college and former coworkers, but when it comes to this area, I actually don't know that many. I am actually friends with my doctor who's Black. I have a professor at school. I go to Lamar for my master's in counseling. I have a professor at school that's Black, and she's my favorite professor so far. I love her. Several of the students that have been in my classes at Lamar are Black, but I'm not that close to them. I actually just don't know that many in the area. I never have been close to them, and that's my own fault. I was raised to know that everyone is the same and I should never discriminate against people, but at the same time, I was always told to be careful around certain parts of town, and those parts of towns are where anyone who wasn't white lived. So my small little mind just made the connection, well, they must not be safe either. I don't think that was like purposely taught to me, but you don't realize till you get older how much, your education has been whitewashed. Anyways, I'm trying to say that I don't know what I'm doing, and I think that's a good first step. It's the only way I know how to model correct behavior for other whites, and that's just to confess to you I don't understand, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I will probably screw up, but there's an open invitation from me for you to educate me. Please do. please educate me. Please explain to me what is appropriate and how you feel and what's going on. I could never fully understand it, but I am willing to listen. And if I make a mistake and I say something or do something culturally offensive or inappropriate, speak up to me. Tell me. Let me know of your struggles. I spent some time in my life living down in the valley, in the area of Texas, and the area that I lived in, I was one of the few and only whites in the area. I was actually a minority. And there were several, I'm not going to get into it because it's a whole nother discussion, but there were several, well, I might as well just call it what it is. I was actually discriminated against in many ways. A lot of Latino Americans in the area either put me on a pedestal and it was very uncomfortable, or the complete opposite and discriminated against me. And not that that in any way tells me what blacks have gone through in America, because it's not like I've experienced it my whole life. It was 2.5 short years of my life. But it did give me an understanding to a feeling I've never had before. And that was, I was regularly discriminated against and no one believed me. I tried to tell the Latino Americans that I actually was friends with, about my experiences and how people had just done some blatant discrimination things against me. And they never believed me. And they made comments that, we hear whites make in America all the time. Sorry, I didn't realize the morning sun was getting so bright on my face. Anyway, I heard comments that whites make all the time to people. Well, I don't see it. I've never seen it. I've never seen someone treat you that way. I don't treat you that way, so you shouldn't get mad at me. And they just never understood. They never understood how I was being treated poorly. And because I felt that way, it made two feelings that I never experienced before happen. It made me feel completely alone. I have never felt more alone than I did in that time, simply from not being believed. And it also made me want to be around other whites. Like, I desperately wanted to be around other people who understood my culture and understood where I was coming from, because I also knew that it would give me a baseline. Probably should get rid of that light. There we go. It gave me a baseline for hanging out with someone. I knew that when I met another white person, that how we got along or how much we didn't get along was going to be based on their character, my character, their morals, my morals, just who we were as people, and not the color of my skin. And it made me realize for the first time, oh my goodness, how many times have I heard a black person, not just blacks really, I mean Latino Americans, blacks, Asian Americans, how many times have I heard whites say things like, how come it's okay for you to want a social organization or like a fraternity or a club on campus that focuses on your culture and your ethnicity and your race, but I can't do the same for me? Well, because I'm like, I finally get it, You just wanted to be around people that were like you and weren't gonna discriminate you. Like, that was the baseline, that it's gonna be about character and it's gonna be about who you are as a person and not the color of your skin, because they're just like you. And I think I finally understood at least a glimpse of that for the first time. And I'm not saying all this to boast in myself in any way or say that, oh, I have an experience and so I understand more. But it did open up my eyes to that very uncomfortable feeling of I've been treated wrongly and no one believes me. And I think I see that at the core of a lot of movements such as Black Lives Matter and other things. They just want to be heard. They just want to be believed and understood about what's going on in America towards them. So this is my confession to any and all Blacks in Southeast Texas. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't understand, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing for you to teach me. And I hope to goodness that I can be a part of making you feel safe. I am proud of Southeast Texas and embarrassed by it all at the same time, as were most people probably from their hometowns. But I'm sorry I'm late to the game, and if there's any way that I personally can make you feel appreciated and loved as a person and respected as a person, let me know, and I will. I know a big argument I hear from others is that whites need to denounce white supremacy groups and need to denounce these types of behaviors. I don't know how I can make that difference because I don't think a lot of white supremacy groups are going to watch this video or care what I think, but I can make an open plea to other whites in Southeast Texas, and I can say a few things. So here goes that part of the video. If you think racism doesn't exist anymore in America, you've got your head in the ground. If you think it doesn't exist anymore in Southeast Texas, you're not paying attention. And if you think it only exists in Vidor or other country towns, you're not paying attention to your own backyard. Because let's just call it what it is. Mid County, which is where I live, is completely whitewashed. There's hardly any other ethnicities here. And bragging and saying, yeah, we've got a few Black students, that's, considering how many live in Beaumont and other areas, that's kind of a joke that you would even say that. We're very caught up in our own whiteness in this area, and we won't acknowledge it. And we say things like, oh, we have Black reporters, and we have Black doctors, and we have Black lawyers in the area, and there's lots of Blacks in the area. Great, but are you paying attention to how they're being discriminated against? Are you paying attention to how they're being treated in every day? Probably not, because I know I don't always do it. I'm so wrapped up in my own world, I don't always notice what's going on. So what you can do is you can open your eyes, and when they tell you stories about how they're being treated, you could choose to shut your mouth for 5 seconds and listen. And you could choose at the very least, you could choose to hurt with them. You could choose to stand by them, put your arm around them, and you could choose to hurt with them. And then you could take a look at your own life and ask the hard questions of, what am I doing? How could I change? And then you could admit your ignorance, admit what you don't know, and try to change. And I think many towns in Southeast Texas, especially in Mid-County, we like to think that we lived in Pleasantville, USA. Everything's perfect. We're a perfect little community with our um, devotion to football and all the like. But the fact of the matter is, it's not like that. We're very whitewashed. And please be aware that sometimes even our efforts to denounce white supremacy can be culturally offensive. I've seen so much on the internet about, like, Ellen's tweet recently about, is this America now? It's always been America, Ellen. Good job. White supremacy is back. No, it actually never left. But thanks for finally paying attention. There's no such thing as race. There's only one race, the human race. Bullshit. Race exists. Different cultures exist. And if you're not paying attention to that, you're not paying attention. And trying to say that there's only one race, the human race, doesn't fix anything. If anything, it sweeps the whole problem under the rug and makes it so it shuts down the conversation, and then we can't talk about it and fix anything. So please don't say that. And I don't know, maybe I've been culturally offensive several times in this video, but like I said, I'm trying to admit my own ignorance. I'm trying to say, at least for me and my family, my house is a safe house for you. My house is a place where you can express to me when I've done wrong, and we will listen. And you will be welcomed here based on who you are as a person. And our cultural and racial differences will be celebrated and honored, and we will find the beauty in them, rather than trying to sweep them under the rug and act like they don't exist. Yeah, and I'm sure I had a lot more to say, but that's basically it. I want the blacks of Southeast Texas to know that I'm sorry. I'm disgusted with what's happening right now. I'm disgusted with myself for not doing more. And this is an attempt to make a difference in my own community and say, I don't understand, please educate me. And I want to be a part of making you feel safe here. You are welcome here. In my home, at least. And again, to the whites in Southeast Texas, this is an example. You could admit your own ignorance. You could make a difference in your own town. And I think that's the challenge I want to put to other whites everywhere. If you feel like you're distant from all the protests and everything that's happening, you have a responsibility in your own hometown to make a difference. You have a responsibility in your own workplace, in your own school, and that's where you can start. If you don't know where to start, that is where you start. And you have conversations like this. I could add a bunch of qualifiers to this because I know people are it's gonna bring up discussions of reverse racism, which doesn't really exist if you understand the very definition of it. And racism being systematic, and how blacks can hate too, and all that stuff, but I'm not going to, because I will say this, if we, and by we I mean any human being, continually use the extremist as an excuse, the extremist for the other side, I hate to call it that, but I don't know how else to say this. If we constantly use the extremists from the other side as an excuse not to do right on our side and call out the wrong on our side, we will never, ever make a difference. Ever. I can't say, well, I've never owned slaves, and I've never discriminated against black people, and I've never done this, so yes, the KKK is crazy, but why should I have to denounce them? Because they're a whole separate entity and that's not who I am. That's stupid. I do have to denounce them. And secondly, I can't turn around and say, well, I've known black people who have shown hatred towards me and discriminated against me and have done really hateful and said horrible things about white people. So what? Even if that does exist, that doesn't change the fact that it exists on my side and it's not okay. It exists within the white culture and it's not okay. And if we constantly use the extreme examples of the other side and how wrong they are as an excuse not to call it the wrong on our side, then we're never going to get anywhere. So I'm not going to really entertain much argument on that. Comment if you want, but I'm just not going to entertain that. So yeah, this video might not be seen by many. Maybe it'll get shared everywhere. But to the blacks, I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed. And I'm willing to learn. If you will teach me, and you are welcome here. And I promise to do better. To the whites, it's time to take a deeper look at what you're doing and consider the fact that maybe, just maybe, you're living your life in such a way that doesn't seem like you discriminate, but if you opened your mind to possibilities you never considered before, maybe you are. And you have I want to challenge you to do this in your own community, because then we could make a difference. I can't make a difference in what's happening and where the protests are and everything, but I can make a difference in my own community. So this is where I'm starting, and I challenge you to do the same. Yeah, so there we go. Hopefully this wasn't in vain. Hopefully it doesn't fall on deaf ears, and hopefully I stick to my guns and actually follow through with this and be the type of person that I hope I can be proud of and not embarrassed by. So that's all I have to say.